Go very quickly through these now. So that, what I've just mentioned, the heritability study was the latest study that I've just published, which is just one strong line of evidence to show that these race differences are themselves genetic. But there are lots of other lines of evidence which I've published on and other people have published on in the past, and I'll whip through these in about 30 seconds. First one is the brain size differences. Australian Aborigines, for example, have the lowest IQ in the world, around IQ of 60. They also have the smallest average brain size. East Asians, at the other extreme, the Chinese and the Japanese, have the highest IQ of population groups. They have the largest brain sizes. And we know from MRI studies that brain size is related to general intelligence. So this all lines up. It's very consistent with the genetic hypothesis. Go to the next slide. Studies of racial admixture. A genetic perspective would tell you that if you intermarry the two population groups, their offspring should be midway between the two parental populations. And there are mixed race populations all around the world. So for example, if you go to Australia, you will find that there are whites and Aborigines who've intermarried or had children together. Their offspring are intermediate between the two other populations. Black-white differences in the United States we're familiar with. White Indian population differences in Mexico we're familiar with. Go to South Africa, you also have mixed race populations. Chinese or Vietnamese and white populations. And again, consistently you find that the offspring are midway between the two population groups. And this is exactly what you would predict from a genetic hypothesis. So that's just another line of information. If you go to the next one, transracial adoption studies, beginning in the Korean War, for example, white people from Belgium adopted, one big study done in Belgium, adopted a lot of very malnourished Korean children. And the Korean children, how do they grow up? Do they grow up like the Belgians, or do they grow up slightly higher than the Belgians? The answer is slightly higher than the Belgians. Black children are raised by white people. How do they grow up? Do they grow up to be like white people, or do they stay around the black population level? The answer is they stay around the black population level. So you have transracial adoption studies are very good measures of the genetic hypothesis. You go to the next one. Well, this is regression to the mean. It's a technical statistical argument I won't get into. If you go to the next one. Races obviously differ in a lot more than just IQ. They differ in things like crime rates and fertility rates and maturation rates and so on. Again, these line up very perfectly with IQ differences. I won't get into that. Go to the next one. Human origins research. I don't have time to do that, but you can read Michael Hart's book, and he discusses the origin of the different races and why some groups have higher IQs than others. Basically, if you live in cold winters, then you really need people with low IQs do not survive the cold winter because their babies die. If you can't feed your baby during the winter, you're not going to survive. So the colder the climates, on average, the higher the IQ of the population that managed to survive there. And finally, if you go to the very last one, and this is the last slide, the inadequacy of cultural explanations. Psychologists have come up with, there must be 100 different theories of why groups differ over the years. I mean, at one point, blacks in America were considered to live in very culturally deprived, under-stimulating environments, rural Mississippi or something. It's so boring out there that no wonder they're sort of lower IQ. But today the theory is that they live in overstimulating environments. You go through all these different theories and they just do not hold up because you can always find another population group that they don't apply to. Ghettos, for example. Blacks are born in ghettos and raised in ghettos. This inhibits their intelligence. But the concept of a ghetto was first invented for the Chinese and the Jews back in 1910. And the argument was, yes, the Chinese in particular live in a ghetto in Los Angeles, and this protects them from the disruptive influences of the outside environment. So for one group, the ghetto raises the IQ. For another group, the ghetto lowers the IQ. So the concept of ghetto is pointless. And you can go through all the cultural theories, so you obliterate them, and you're only left with the genetic argument. So that's it. Thank you very much.